Okay, the time is now 5:28 p.m. on July 12th, 2021, and I would like to call this meeting of the Sustainability Commission to order. In the interest of public health and safety and pursuant of the Governor's Executive Order N2920, members of the Sustainability Commission and staff are participating in this meeting by teleconference. In accordance with the executive order, the public may view the meeting online, but not in conference room C101 in Building A at City Hall, California, or Chula Vista, California. The city launched a virtual commenting portal, eComment, that allows residents to comment and participate in the meeting from their own homes. You can find the link in eComment at www.chulavistaca.gov/virtual meetings. Your comments must be received before I call for the close of the commenting period in order to be considered. After the commenting period is closed, I will announce a brief pause to allow the commissioners time to read any comments that have been received. If you have difficulty or are unable to submit a comment, please contact Sustainability Commission staff for assistance at ssc@chulavistaca.gov. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Baugh,
Present.
Commissioner Guevara Gluyas, Commissioner Corrigan,
Present.
Commissioner Richardson,
Present.
Commissioner Rodriguez, Vice Chair Legaspi, and Chair Matthias.
Present. Thank you. The first order of business is item 3, approval of the consent calendar. I will now call for a 2-minute pause to allow the public to submit any final comments on the items in the consent calendar. As a reminder, commissioners, please refresh your screen to ensure you receive the new comments. Okay, I believe the commenting period is now over and I do not see any comments. Am I correct?
Correct, no comments are received.
Okay. Do any commissioners wish to pull the item for any items for discussion or questions from the regular minutes, the meeting minutes of June 14th, 2001? No? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll move approval.
Okay.
And I
That's
second.
Richardson. Okay, and Corrigan. So I have motion by Commissioner Richardson and second by Commissioner Corrigan Secretary Lapp, could you please conduct the roll call?
Commissioner Baugh,
I guess this one should say, or yes, approved.
Commissioner Corrigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson,
Yes.
and Chair Matthias.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the consent calendar passes. And we move on to public comments. The public comments is a section of the agenda for members of the public to address the board on items that are not listed in the agenda. I will now call for a 2-minute pause to allow the public to submit any final public comments. As a reminder, please refresh the view of your screen to ensure you have the latest comments. Okay, so the comment period for the public is closed. And I don't believe I saw any comments either. Am I correct?
Correct, no comments were received.
Okay, so we're going on to the next, which is presentations that are requiring no action. So next on the agenda is item 5.1. San Diego is drought safe. San Diego is drought safe. There we go. Presented by Trish Berg, Assistant General Manager of the San Diego County Water Authority. Welcome, Trish.
Thank you, Chair Matthias.
Oh, it's Tish. Sorry, I apologize for that.
That's okay.
Okay, so we'd love to hear your presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Matthias and Commissioners. I'm Tish Berg. I'm Assistant General Manager at the San Diego County Water Authority. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. If I look familiar to some of you, I was formerly the General Manager of Sweetwater Authority, serving the western portion of Chula Vista, and it was my honor to serve your area, and it was very fun to work in Chula Vista. I'm honored to be addressing you today in my new role and the opportunity to tell you our region's story. Next slide, please. As a refresher, we are the wholesale water provider for the region, and our agency was created in 1944 by the state legislature to be able to receive imported water from the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, better known as MWD. We do that through a system of massive pipelines, 310 miles of them, that deliver water to our 24 member agencies highlighted on the map, specifically for Chula Vista, that's Otay Water District and Sweetwater Authority. We also play an important and critical role in terms of long-term water supply planning and preparation for the region, a role that no other agency plays. Next slide, please. It's important to note that San Diego is a unique region and we have very few natural water resources and get very little rainfall. In fact, Chula Vista is very unique as far as having natural resources with regard to the groundwater that you are able to have, but it's unique to Chula Vista. There's only a few other places within San Diego County that have that. We only get about 10 inches of rain per year, and you can compare that with Los Angeles that gets about 15 inches of rain, or San Francisco that gets 21. So we're really on the low end of the scale with regard to rainfall. The majority of our region's water supply, or about 66%, travels nearly 300 miles from the Colorado River to reach our aqueduct system. This is our lowest cost supply. It's also referred to as Quantified Settlement Agreement, or QSA, conserved water for short. 10% of our supplies travel more than 600 miles through the California aqueduct, but 24% are local, and they include seawater desalination, water purification, surface water, groundwater, and recycled water, or what's called purple pipe. The supply diversification was the result of 3 decades of planning using a water portfolio approach to drinking water supply management, and it ensures resilience and reliability during tough times. Next slide, please. You've probably seen a lot of media coverage in recent weeks about dry conditions this year across the state. That's certainly the case, but the good news is that the investments we've made here in San Diego provide sufficient water supplies for 2021 and indeed for multiple dry years ahead. This is what our water bills are paying for: safe, reliable water supplies, even when there's not a lot of water to go around. It's also important to note that one reason why we have sufficient supplies is that residents and businesses have hardwired conservation practices into their everyday lives, so that per capita water use, or water use per person, is about half right now what it was a few decades ago. And that means every drop stretches much further. Next slide, please. But let's go back in history to a time that was a little tougher. You may remember the drought of the 1980s and 90s. And these are some of the headlines from that time. You can see the one in the center talking about a 50% supply cut. And that included a 90% cut to our ag community. This was because, as you can see in the pie chart in the upper right corner, we were nearly entirely reliant on one source for our water supply, and that was Metropolitan Water District. We were spared the 50% cut due to the Miracle March rains, and we ended up with a regional cut of 31% at that time. These water supply shortages were a huge blow to our regional economy and a turning point for the Water Authority. Our business, elected, and community leaders such as yourselves demanded that our region never be in this predicament again. And the Water Authority Board of Directors responded with a directive to diversify our supplies, be innovative in our infrastructure investments, while continuing to embrace a water conservation ethic. Next slide, please. So our main service to the region comes from providing our member agencies with a safe, reliable source of water. For some of our member agencies, this is their only supply, while for others, it's supplemented with local supplies. So for example, Otay Water District gets all of their potable drinking water from the San Diego County Water Authority, whereas Sweetwater Authority gets a combination from groundwater, surface water through the reservoir, and then also purchased water from the County Water Authority. Either way, the end result is a diversified portfolio that has prepared the region well for the drought that we are currently experiencing. So how did we obtain this diversified portfolio? Our ratepayers invested in new supplies, supported changes in water use with programs and incentives, and added local storage capacity. So I'll share the diversified portfolio in totality with special attention to our lowest cost supply, the QSA conserved water that I mentioned earlier, and our newest supply, seawater desalination. The QSA is the nation's largest ag to urban conservation and transfer agreement, providing high priority water to San Diego County. Transfer water is under contract through 2047, and canal lining contract is through 2112. These high priority water supplies are the Water Authority's lowest cost supplies and make up just about half of our portfolio, as I mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. Here are some of the specific infrastructure investments our ratepayers have made to expand storage, move water around the county, and diversify the water supply. We have expanded surface storage with the Leeuwenhoek Dam and the San Vicente Dam raise. We built state-of-the-art water treatment plant to improve our region's capacity to treat raw water and give us more control over treatment costs. And we also built the infrastructure necessary to move water into and out of Lake Hodges to better take advantage of supplies there. As an added bonus, we were able to produce hydroelectric power on demand to help meet the region's energy needs. Next slide, please. So the drought headlines today look a lot different than they did before. Over the last several decades, the residents and businesses of the region invested in water use efficiency infrastructure, making us resilient and ensuring supply availability even when the rest of the state is facing drought. Next slide, please. But we're not done planning. So looking ahead, I want to give you a big picture about some important opportunities for partnerships in line with Governor Newsom's water resiliency portfolio model. The Water Authority Board voted in July of 2019 to support the governor's approach, which aligned closely with our approach since the 90s. And that is potable reuse development is the next increment of water supply in the region. Collectively, the region is expecting to bring online more than 100,000 acre-feet of new potable reuse projects in just the next 15 years. And importantly, we're looking at the state's regulatory framework to try to remove some of the hurdles for direct potable reuse, which would expedite development of these important water supplies and save the ratepayers millions of dollars. We're also looking at options for the Water Authority to store water in Lake Mead and help the Colorado River Basin as a whole. There's also future potentials for partnership with the regional conveyance system that could transport our low-cost, high-priority, independent Colorado River water supplies straight from Imperial Valley to here. Next slide, please. So with all of this planning, this is our projected water resources supply mix for 2045. It's a far cry from the one you saw for 1991. The board approved just this May the 2020 Urban Water Management Plan, which I'll talk a little bit more about next. These are the approved projected numbers for our water supply sources in 2045, and it's what our water bills are paying for, that safe, reliable water, even when there's not a lot of water to go around. Next slide, please. An important component of our water supply reliability planning is the Urban Water Management Plan. It serves as the Water Authority's long-range planning document for water supplies. Since 1985, water suppliers have been required to update and submit a plan to the state every 5 years. Urban water management plans are prepared following statutory requirements set forth in the Water Code. So just this May, they approved the 2020 Urban Water Management Plan, which is based on that horizon all the way out to 2045. The overarching purpose of the plan is to forecast demands and water supplies for the region in coordination with our member agencies and to assess reliability and plan for contingencies. So the importance of the plan has evolved and expanded since it was first required in 1985. Legislative changes continue to add new requirements, as you can imagine. For the 2020 plan, recent additions included more intensive drought planning, including a required drought risk assessment that looked at supply reliability with dry conditions over the next 5 consecutive years. Next slide, please. Every urban water supplier that either produces or provides over 3,000 acre-feet of water annually or serves more than 3,000 urban connections is required to prepare such a plan. These plans are prepared by water wholesalers such as the Water Authority and by water retailers, and that includes most of our member agencies. While the purpose and many requirements are the same, there are differences in the required data and reporting when comparing a wholesaler to a retailer. And the key differences are driven by how a wholesaler functions, what our service area is, and the customer base. So as a wholesaler, the Water Authority service area is made up of the 24 member agency service areas. And as such, our demand forecast for the Urban Water Management Plan is based on an aggregated data for all member agencies. And we work with SANDAG to get the majority of that data. A retailer's Urban Water Management Plan, however, it looks at regional supplies and conditions, but is focused only on its individual service area. The other key difference has to do with how water is distributed. The Water Authority provides wholesale distribution of water to its member agencies, and the member agencies purchase water from the Water Authority for retail distribution within their territory. The Water Authority is not providing water directly to a retail customer. It's not our logo on those bills that the ratepayers pay each month. However, the data and reporting requirements are going to be different. So for example, retailers must report on water use by sector, meaning they have to show what the water use will be for a single family residence, a multifamily residence, commercial, agricultural, and other categories. And as I mentioned, many of the components are the same, however. Both of us have to develop demand forecasts, do supply reliability assessments, prepare that drought risk assessment I mentioned, including water shortage contingency planning, addressing climate change, and importantly, coordinating with other agencies. Next slide, please. The Urban Water Management Plan highlights how regional investments in a water portfolio approach to supply management and a sustained emphasis on water use efficiency means that San Diego County will continue to have sufficient supplies through 2045, even during multiple dry years. So San Diego County is drought safe because of all the region's water providers have worked together for the past 30 years to develop locally controlled drought resilient supplies that can meet our needs, such as seawater desal, storage, recycled water, and potable reuse. The Water Authority will continue to explore options that ensure reliability while being fiscally responsible, and will continue to support our member agencies' efforts to develop local supplies. Next slide, please. So thank you again, commissioners, for your time today. Please do stay in touch with us and follow what's happening with your region's water by signing on to our award-winning Water News Network and follow us on social media. Thank you again for having me, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Tish. So I first have a question, not a question, I want to applaud you and the Water Authority for diversifying the portfolio. That obviously seems to really have helped. And I see a lot of our citizens in the community taking action by changing over their landscapes to more of a drought tolerant landscape. And somehow I wish there were some kind of a fine or increased water bill for those who continue to water their lawns. Like there's no end to water. I don't get that one. But so there's a lot that the community is doing, and I know you are still reaching efforts or expanding efforts in the conservation of water. And I look forward to getting back out into community fairs and things like that, where we could see you guys out there reaching out to the community, doing outreaches on how to continue to save water. So thank you so much. Really appreciate all that. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
I have a question. What in your risk assessment that you put together, how did you factor in the national shortage of water that's going to be declared next month due to the Lake Mead dropping below 1,075 feet? How is that factored into your forecast?
Oh, that's a great question. So when we look at the water in Colorado River, we look at where our priority rights are. And so because of where we are within the basin and included in that where we are within California, we have high priority rights. And so there would be significant cuts to actually Arizona and Nevada before California. And then within California, it would, Metropolitan Water District would be cut before the San Diego would be cut. And so we are in a relatively safe position because of that. I don't mean to, we don't want to be boastful about it, but that's what the investments pay for. So the dry years, while they're dry, we have several supplies that are high priority and or drought proofs like the desal that allow us to continue to be able to provide for the region during those dry times. With that said, we support the governor's voluntary call for conservation that was made just this past week, where he's asking our residents and throughout the state to conserve voluntarily 15%. And we support that because we believe that to be part of California is to be part of the entire solution. I'm sorry, my motion light's turned off. And so we fully support that and continue to encourage conservation through our lawn rebates, as well as other practices that we support throughout the region.
Kind of a follow-up question on that. One assessment I've read is that basically we're no longer facing a drought condition. We're actually a new aridity for the Southwest. And part of that had to do with a 5% reduction in the Colorado snowfall, but a 20% reduction in the water flow into Lake Mead. The explanation for that was that difference is evaporation of groundwater. And basically we're seeing that throughout the state. We're seeing that in Arizona, we're seeing that in Utah, we're seeing it everywhere. Basically saying that you're drought tolerant is assuming there's an end to this, as opposed to we're in a new environment where basically aridity and water, the air is absorbing more of our water sometimes than we're even putting in the ground for agriculture. So I guess I'm a little concerned that kind of the guarantees that you're looking at may be ignoring some risks. So I'm not sure. I don't have the comfort level that you're trying to give us about where we stand. I think we're all going to face a serious water issue, particularly on the agreement that I've read between Arizona and Nevada that goes back to the 1930s, says agriculture takes most of that cut. Basically, agriculture doesn't get water, food supplies drop off. So prices on food supplies go up. So kind of I see a little bit of complacency maybe in this, that basically we're safe. We're not going to be affected whether if food supply get cut back because of Arizona and Nevada reductions, even in the Imperial Valley, we're all going to be affected. So it seems to me that maybe the downstream effects of some of these things are not factored into your risk assessment. That's a question and maybe a statement that, frankly, I raised the question about this because the city staff seem to feel we're safe. We don't need to be making any cuts. We don't need to be doing anything more because you're being told that we're safe. And I feel that that's really not helpful in terms of the planning we all need to be doing for saving water. So it's a long question, maybe an opinion, but what's your reaction to that?
I appreciate your comments, and I agree that while we continue to conserve more and we find that our residents are conserving even more, we are adapting and adjusting to what I think I heard you call or allude to as a new normal with regard to the arid. You know, one of the items our general manager has advocated for is to have a statewide system where water can move back and forth. So one of the challenges right now is we are in a position where our region has additional water, and we are trying to work with others so that when times are difficult like this, we can share that water as appropriate. However, the infrastructure and those contracts are not in place right now. So for example, we have water that we could be storing in Lake Mead, but contractually, we don't have the agreements to be able to do that. So we're understanding that while San Diego region may be in a place where we are safer than other parts of the state, we also don't have the infrastructure to to do anything other than take voluntary cuts and share the pain, that those voluntary cuts aren't going to get another drop of water further north, for example. So with that, I think a regional system is great. A statewide system would be even better for us to be able to move that. And I do hope that the water conservation ethic as we gain momentum, as more residents and businesses look across the street and see others doing it, that more people get on board. Similar to what the chair said, there's still a lot of people who think it's their right to have a lawn, for example. And while Nevada has started to mandate and change that, we're a little hesitant yet to do that as a state, correct? So maybe that time has come to make it a little more rigorous statewide as to what does conservation look like statewide? What does adapting to an arid climate that's going to be a new normal look like? But thank you for your comments, and I do appreciate feedback so that we can continue to improve how we share our information, as well as what risk assessments we look at.
I appreciate that as well. And my only concern about backing up your water into Lake Mead is what's going to prevent somebody else from taking it out. You know, we're all in one big system. As you say, we can backfill water into various places, but everybody else has as many demands for water as we do, and perhaps more. So again, it's unclear to me what exactly your forecast is for the real risk that we're facing and what we need to be doing at all levels to make sure there's enough water for whatever needs we're going to have, whether it's agriculture, municipal services. I actually brought to the city staff attention, the city of Las Vegas said, rip out all lawns that are not being used for any purpose, that medians of streets and so forth. So I didn't see that kind of urgency, and maybe it's the safe language you're using, which I guess it troubles me a bit. We need to be saying we've got a lot of work to do to make sure that we're going to be say the 2045 forecast number bothers me also with the shortage declaration. So I just to kind of say that you need to be a bit more of an advocate for, we need to be doing our part. We shouldn't be saying we're safe, everybody else is suffering, but we're not, you know, we can't do anything about sharing. We need to be saying we're all in this together. We need to be all saving water to make sure that the rest of the country, the rest of the state has sufficient resources, and we're not sitting here saying, well, we don't have to do anything. That's a bit troubling to me. So that's the end of it. Thank you very much. I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
I do have one more comment, and maybe this is a wishful thought. I know we have a pipeline. Pipelines are everywhere for oil. Why can't we create a pipeline going from the east coast right now, which is downpour rain, everything? They have so much rain there, to come over here. I mean, I know there's a lot of politics involved, but if this is something that needs to happen, I have no idea why we could take oil everywhere, and yet we can't, the necessity, our lifeline, water, we can't do that with.
That's a great question. That's actually something completely outside my area. So I will put that on my radar and report back to staff if I hear anything with regard to interstate or one coast to the other as far as water movement. Thank you.
Okay, are there any more comments that we would like to make?
I have a question, actually.
Okay, Commissioner Corbin?
Thank you so much, by the way, Tish, for your informative presentation. I think that the key takeaway that Commissioner Richardson pointed out that was displayed in your presentation, that the issue is multifactorial and it's very complicated. And I wouldn't expect an exposition of such a complication within such a short presentation. And so for the fact that the presentation was time limited, I do applaud you for being able to capture as much as you did. Question that I bring to you, however, is whether or not we know how much water is lost in our current system, including the distribution that is governed and awarded by the Water Authority.
I don't know our water loss numbers through our system, our 300 miles of pipeline, but I can look into that and report back to staff. I know that an industry standard for a retail system is something on the order of 3 to 8% that's expected as far as water loss. So that's water that leaves the treatment plant but never makes it to the customer.
Running with that line of thinking, it is my sincere expectation that next presentation we will see a graphical representation of these data, including a projection of how we anticipate remedying the solution over the next coming years, be it a decade or longer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think it's time for that. We now call for a 2-minute pause to allow the public to submit any comments on the item before. And commissioners, as you know, please refresh your screen to ensure you have the latest comments. Okay, the commenting period is now over and I did not see any comments. So thank you, Tish, very much for your presentation, very informative, and I look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Thank you. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye, thank you.
Chair Mathias,
Yes,
could I ask that the item I originally asked for be put on the next agenda, which is what the city's plan is for addressing the water shortage that we're going to be getting, whether we like it or not. We now have a 15% voluntary cutback. What's the city planning on doing? I'd like to see that report. That's really what I wanted when I asked for this item before. So I'd like to restate that as a request.
okay. We will put that on the agenda for next month. Staff, did you get that?
Yes, we did.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, now back to the next item on the agenda is 5.2 under presentations. So we have the presentation by Southwest Strategies Outreach Consultant to the Redistricting Commission on Chula Vista redistricting efforts. Now I'll say that 10 times. Okay, thank you, Southwest Strategies.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to give a presentation today. My name is Melina Mesa, and as you said, I'm here with Southwest Strategies. And I'm going to tell you about the importance of participating in the redistricting process. Next slide, please. Next slide. So what is redistricting? With the passage of district elections by Chula Vista voters in 2012, redistricting now occurs every decade following the release of census data to redraw boundaries for the city council districts. The city of Chula Vista has appointed 7 redistricting commissioners that will work with the public to gather feedback and present recommended maps to the city council for final approval. During this process, it is important that our communities are present, that people's voices are being heard to ensure better representation by their future council members. Next slide, please. Redistricting increases representation to voters and allows greater access to government and increases accountability. Districts are drawn to keep communities of interest together to increase their voice and impact on government decisions that will impact them. Ensuring that communities of interest are properly represented will improve the effectiveness of city government. Next slide, please. If you have, so who should participate? If you have a vested interest in Chula Vista, then you definitely need to participate. Every resident, business, community organization all need to participate in order to have their voice heard and increase the effectiveness of the process. Next slide, please. So what does this process involve? The redistricting processing is broken down into 2 phases. The first phase will include a series of 4 workshops, one held in each city council district. During these workshops, the public will be able to present their concerns, maps, and relevant information to the commissioners. During the next phase, the public will have the opportunity to discuss the proposed maps and provide feedback. And the final step would be in December 2021 when the final maps are presented to City Council for approval. Next slide, please. So how can you get involved? Your help is needed to spread the word and increase involvement. We are asking you to leverage your networks to let everyone know about the redistricting process and increase participation. Like I said, there are 4 scheduled workshops, and the goal is to have as many people attend as possible and participate at these workshops. However, if you're unable to attend any of these workshops, there are online interactive tools that can be used to provide feedback. And right here, you can see all the dates that are listed for the upcoming workshops as well. And just as a friendly reminder, we do have 4 workshops and they are in each council district. However, the same presentation is presented at all of them. So you only need to attend one of them. And you don't have to go to your own council district. You can go to any of them. It's just, we just wanted to make it accessible to everyone and just kind of make sure that we have it in as many areas as possible. Next slide, please. And any questions or input, like I said, if anyone is not able to attend, they can either send a letter, email, call, any of these avenues that are here and on this slide. Please feel free to participate, and just we definitely just want to hear from everyone, and we want everyone here from the commission to participate and spread the word to all of your networks and contacts. And that concludes the presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, actually, I do. Will one of the meetings, at least one of the meetings, be a virtual meeting so that people could watch this down the line?
Yes. The first meeting on the 28th is a virtual meeting, and it will be held at council chambers, and it will be recorded. So if somebody is unable to attend any of the meetings, they can still go online and watch the recording.
Okay, excellent. And this is just, you're not adding another district, you're just changing the lines of the boundaries, correct? Or
that is correct. It has to be done every time there is there's new census data. The city has to go through redistricting.
Okay. Wow. Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I have one question. You use the term community of interest several times. Can you tell me how you define a community of interest that you would be looking at in this case?
Sure. I mean, I think the city of Chula Vista is a very large city where it has like different types of populations, and I guess that would mean the area, like, how do I explain this? The areas that, like, people have different interests. Like, for example, say you live in out in East County, your concern might be about the toll roads or something that is related to your neighborhood. And that's why we want to hear from people, because like everybody lives in their own neighborhood and they're enclosed with their own, things around them, and everybody has their own issues. And so there might be something that is very prevalent in that specific area, and that's what we want to hear about. And so you want to make sure that like the communities that have specific issues stay, kind of like, it just ensures better representation. They stay together so that way when the, issues come up at city council, they can ask their council member to go ahead and champion specific issues that are of interest to them. Any other questions?
I have a quick comment and a quick question.
Mhm.
The quick comment is that I scanned that QR code and it says the campaign has been disabled for some reason, and or
Oh,
the reader's
odd.
is not working fine.
Thank you for letting me know. I will definitely make sure that that is functioning correctly.
Yeah, so correction, my QR code reader scanner is working fine, and that the code campaign has been disabled for some reason. Yeah, so thanks for correcting that issue. And then the question is help me connect the dots. Can you say very succinctly how redistricting is important for the charges of this commission?
Well, I mean, I think everybody in this commission lives in the city of Chula Vista. And so I think as anybody that is a stakeholder in the city of Chula Vista or has an vested interest in the city of Chula Vista should participate. So this is not something that is specific to one group or another. This is something that could affect anyone. I mean, I think I would assume that everybody on this commission is a city of Chula Vista resident. And so therefore you
Well,
would
we
be
have to be a city of Chula Vista resident, but I mean, you could go around giving this presentation to all the commissions, and maybe that's a standard practice, but I'm just curious as to, what this has to do with our charge, other than the fact that we enjoy a Chula Vistan citizenry, which I think is a very basic call. I mean, you can go to our local Starbucks and likely find the same, um, charge there, but I'm not connecting the dots here. So, I mean, maybe our chair can help me, because I don't understand why this is a presentation here.
Well, I think she's reaching out to everyone so that we could just expand and get the information out to our community. And that's definitely what I'm going to be doing in my network of SBSC members. So just to let them know that this is available, that this happens. I had no idea this even happens every 10 years. So it's good information. And just to be aware of what's going on in our city, I think is very important. And that this information is out there so that people who do have an interest in what's going on in our city and wants to learn more, they can. And especially if they have special interests that they would like to know more about, or especially to their representatives, and how to contact their representatives. I think by presenting this too makes that connection between the representative, their district representative, and the city. So a lot of people don't realize that they can contact their district representative. So
Excellent. So I think that makes a lot more sense. So if I understand correctly, it's to leverage our own community resources. And if that's the charge, then as vice president of my HOA, I'd be happy to at least share this information on our next agenda, which is going to be in just a few weeks.
absolutely.
Thank you. And I actually, if anyone is interested in obtaining the material regarding the upcoming workshops, I'm more than glad to send over to everyone on this commission the flyer for the upcoming events. And as well as an FAQ sheet where people can, because redistricting is something that's fairly new to the city of Chula Vista. This is only the first time that the city of Chula Vista goes through redistricting. So the residents might not know everything that's going on, so I'm more than glad to send out that material to everyone.
Yes, please, if you could send it to our secretary, that would be great. She'll forward it to everyone.
Yes,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Well, thank you, Melina from Southwest Strategies. Really appreciate all the information. Very informative. And so let's go ahead and set the 2-minute timer to see if the public has any comments. Okay, commenting period is now closed, and I did not see any comments. Am I correct?
Correct. No comments were received.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Melina. Have a great day, and thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye. So next on the agenda is this is an action item, and it is item 6.1 under action items. So we have 6.1 amendments to various sections of the municipal code, chapters 8.24 and 8.25, to update the definition of organic waste, giving the authority of the city manager to require organic waste landfill diversion and in the processing of delinquent payments. And Manuel, you'll be presenting tonight.
I do not have a presentation. Frankly, it would have been a pretty dry white and red presentation. So I'm here to answer any questions and ask for an action to approve the amendments.
Okay, does anyone have any comments?
I have a question. I don't need to dominate the meeting. I apologize for that. Manuel, can you tell me whether or not if someone has a coffee can in their kitchen that basically are tossing things in there as they're cutting up stuff in the kitchen, when it fills up, take it out to the backyard with a tote out there with holes drilled in the side of it and dump the material in there, mix it up, compost it and so forth. Is that illegal under this ordinance?
It is not. It is not. You can
Uh,
still compost at home, except there are materials that you just can't compost at home because they will not break down. So, but to answer your question, it is not illegal.
Well, as I read paragraph A under 824.80, it says it is unlawful for any small quantity generator in a residential area to keep or store any solid waste and recyclables, organic waste within containers except those provided by the city contractor franchise agent. What I just described seems to me to be unlawful based on that sentence.
Well, that's meant to be more as for storing for disposal. So if you have another container you would like to store the material in, you could go ahead. But as far as for collection and disposal for the franchise city hauler to haul away, then it would have to be in that appropriate container that will be provided.
Then maybe you ought to say store it for pickup by Republic Services rather than storing it for your own use. It does sound like it's unlawful to not use whatever container you're going to provide or that Republic Services is going to provide to do your own composting. And that seems inappropriate.
Okay.
So basically what you're saying is that, like, for green waste, we are allowed other containers out there that have handles on it. And that will not be allowed for the food scrap, correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
And only for disposal, not just for storage.
gotcha. Okay. So maybe a little bit clearer on that so people understand that.
And is it mandatory that everybody get a container and have one in their kitchen that's going to be provided by Republic Services, or can you decline that?
To be provided what's known as a kitchen caddy, you're not required to store in a city-provided or Republic-provided container. It would just be provided as I would say, as a courtesy.
As a request.
So you can decline that, and that's not going to be a problem.
It's not going to be a problem now.
I think it's
Is
going to
it-
be more on request, is that?
Yes, that's the case.
Is there a fee?
For the container, for the kitchen caddy, it won't be a fee. It will be provided at no cost.
Okay, but
So
there will
it-
be, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
There will be a fee for the other container that goes on the street, however, and you have to have one of those. Is that correct?
There will be, actually, the rental fee will be going away for that. Currently, folks that have, residents that have that green container pay $1.50 a month to rent that container. So as part of this new program, that rental fee will go away. But, as we've mentioned in the past and in a lot of our information that we've sent out, there will be an increase in the disposal costs to be able to process this material at a central facility.
So you don't have to have that container either.
That container for the inside of the kitchen, you don't have to use that container, no. It was
Yeah,
that the
the one that
question?
go-
Sorry.
The one on the street, you have to have the new container, you have to have one of those.
You have to have one of those, yeah. If you don't have it, approximately half of homes in Chula Vista do not have those carts, those green carts.
Yeah.
So they will be
Yeah.
provided to them.
And everybody must have one of those in the future.
Yes.
So I do have a question. Now, those green containers, as cute as they are, they do attract fruit flies, I do have to say. We had one at the center for many years, and we were always dealing with fruit flies, and it was being emptied out regularly. So that is a challenge with those containers. Is there some way we could do a big promotion saying, hey, if you guys have a Tupperware container, or if you have, I mean, we could just show them different types of containers that people have in their homes. It's much more plastic friendly if they use something they currently have. And maybe you could just do the city could do a campaign saying you guys can use your own containers, could be any size, whatever fits under your cabinet or under your sink. It doesn't have to be this one, but if you do want this one, it is available. Don't just say this is the thing we have and let's just use this. I mean, why not use something that we already have? Repurpose something. So
Yeah,
and-
no, that's in the plans for the education, and we even plan to have videos, instructive videos. So yeah, that's definitely, yeah, you're not gonna be forced to use those kitchen caddies, quote unquote, to store your containers. Plus, there's also other ways to avoid those issues like fruit flies. We're gonna recommend for folks to, if they have like a greasy bag for that had food at one point, you could always store it in there. And then also put a yard waste on top. That helps sometimes with keeping the fruit flies and other odors down too.
Yeah, but I mean, in the kitchen, those little caddies, you're not going to be putting that kind of stuff. I mean, we even put paper towels, wet paper towels on top of the food scraps as we put the lid down. For those of you who've not seen it, I don't have one around here, but it has a
If
little
you
lid on.
if you receive that mailer, it's actually in the back side of the mailer where the woman's emptying out the food waste into it.
So, I mean, it looks nice,
Mhm.
but there are so many more other ways and more just use something you have.
Mhm.
And as long as you guys present it that way, people don't feel obligated to have to get that caddy. And plus it saves
Mhm.
you guys more money. And even though I know you have a grant, it still saves you money. So, and uses less plastic. So,
Mhm.
Anyhow, that's my 2 cents.
Well, what-
Any other
some-
questions?
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is,
some of the other language in this basically prohibits people from using their own containers. So I want to make sure we're not going the wrong direction here by specifying only certain containers, whether they're indoors or outdoors, are going to be acceptable. Again, it says it's unlawful if you don't do what the city's containers. So it needs to be clear that if you're going to use your own containers, that's going to be okay. And this ordinance needs to reflect that.
The containers inside, but as far as putting it out on the street, it needs to be their specific containers. Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Quick, so I have a question, comment, discussion, whatever we want to call it, and it's aligned with what Commissioner Richardson and the chair have just mentioned. So, Manuel, these, when I read this, there's a lot of legalese, which of course speaks to my heart and made me smile. Is it fair for me to assume that this was written in partnership with the city attorney?
Yes, it was approved. The language was approved by the city attorney.
That leads me to believe that much of this language, of course, is not intended for punitive application, but rather municipal protection, which I think rests at least a little bit the worries that I would have for the question I have, which is with regard to the delinquency and investigation of performances. My concern is really that this expands the authority and functional responsibilities of the city manager's office. And so this is just a comment. And I hope that the resources within the city are aligned in order to support that function, right? Because if this is something that we're advancing and this is going to be housed and solely responsible within the purview of the authorities of the city manager, then that's going to not just have human resource consequences, but of course, significant municipal consequences for the general fund. And so there needs to be a budget reallocation in order to reflect that. Otherwise, all of this is legalese and aspirational. And that's just a fact. It's not refutable. But the only question I had apart from that, so that part was just food for thought. Then the question I had regarding delinquency is, and maybe it might have been in there, so forgive my source amnesia, but what about community living? You know, HOAs and things of that nature, where you have folks who throw their rubbish in a common container, and said area also has a recycling, which may or may not be correctly used. What do those types of delinquencies have to do, or how do they map onto the language here?
So generators, organic waste generators, which is pretty much, I would say most of the residential settings, the residential properties, have their own requirements as part of this regulation, the statewide regulation. So if there is non-compliance in the case of multifamily settings, then first the staff will need to work with the property owner to make sure that they're complying on their part to educate their residents, because there is an education component on the owner and on the property manager, mainly on the owner. So that's part of the education that the city will deploy to make sure that that's the compliance part of it. So that's a short answer to that. Did I answer that question, or? I understand. I think I understand your question. Is like it's an apartment complex, say, and there's multiple residents doing
Not
their
just
own
apartment
thing.
complex. So yeah, I mean, let me use myself as your case study. I have a townhouse here in Otay Ranch within Winding Walk. I'm vice president of our HOA, and I every Wednesday march my recyclables and my garbage over about 50 feet from my house, and I throw it in the trash bin, as disgusting as it is. and then I walk away. There have been multiple occasions that I see, well, why is this in rubbish when this should be over in recyclables, and vice versa. If I'm so inclined and happen to be wearing rubber gloves, I might correct the mistake. Most of the time, that's not the case. So is there some sort of random select at will investigation that will then find the HOA? And if so, that's reasonable, but how is that information communicated to HOAs so boards know how to pass on the torch of information?
So there is actually random checks that we have to do, that also the Republic Services has to do and report back to the city, because we have to report it back to the state. And there is a certain percentage that they require for us to do. And then that follows up, in fact, as part of the regulation, that we need to follow up with education onto what items were found on there, and what items were put in their one container. So that's part of this part of the regulation. And again, with the generator requirements, that's where the city and our staff is doing continual education, because as you know, I mean, recycling, as you pointed out, it's been around for over 30 years, and still people don't know what goes where. So this is going to be a call to action for our group that it's not, frankly, it's never going to stop. We're going to have to continue doing it, and I wouldn't expect it to stop, because there's new generations coming in, and we have to definitely keep educating. But I think to address also a question, or maybe the comment you had earlier about the additional resources needed for a lot of this regulation, I do agree with you. There's a lot to do. And there's going to be there's actually very few resources offered by the state at this point, other than oversubscribed grants. But we're fortunate that we have enough staff to help us do the education, and we have a little bit of resources ourselves to be able to continue. And that's why you see a lot of the material that we send out to our residents. So again, it's something that we have to continue doing, and it's a whole new way of thinking about now where do we dispose of our waste. 3/4 of it happens to be organic, and it's supposed to go on these new containers that will start occupying areas throughout the city.
And maybe we can encourage associations to pursue these grants themselves. Maybe that might also alleviate the burden.
Yeah, that's always a possibility. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Ball.
I have a couple questions. They were going back from the beginning, but let's see. One of the comments was, or the summary says that there is part of the work that was being done here was to correct or fix the issues that you're having with delinquent payments. And I didn't understand, or I didn't see it, and honestly I was reading it off my phone in the airport, what was going on with the delinquent payments and how you fix that. So that's question one. And then question two is, you said that you've removed the $1.50 charge for the green barrel. So that's great, so everybody will get one, but is there another fee that everyone's getting that's going to go up? Is that what you're saying? And I should look more closely at my my Republic bill, but if you could explain it, that would be helpful.
Okay, first I'll answer the second question, which is the easiest, and the easier one, sorry. So the rental fee, yes, will go away, and there will be an increase in the disposal costs in your monthly or bi-monthly service costs, but it's that still hasn't gone to council for approval, so you wouldn't see it yet as to what that percentage increase will be in there. So so yes, I would suggest to definitely take a look at your bill and make sure that it's itemized correctly as the services you have. As far as sorry, go ahead.
Is there So is there just one disposal fee, or is there a disposal fee for greenery and disposal fee for recycling and disposal fee for trash?
For residential settings, there's only one disposal fee. But if you have additional containers, that is itemized. If you have additional green carts also, or any additional services that month, it will be itemized. But that's for residential settings, that's the case. For commercial settings, it is itemized with the different services and different frequencies.
So will everyone just be, you said about only half of the residents have the green barrel right now. So everyone's going to be given a green barrel because we assume that they're all going to generate this new waste, food waste?
That's correct. Every single family customer will be receiving that barrel, that green barrel.
Okay. Can it be, do you have smaller ones?
There's going to be a choice of either the 32-gallon, 64-gallon, or 96-gallon cart for the organics, as we now will be referring to it. And now on the question about delinquent payments, the way they were processed, they're still processed because we haven't approved this yet, but there's usually after the 90th day of receiving no payment, or Republic Services not receiving a payment, they will turn those delinquent or I don't want to call them delinquent, but overdue payments into the city to process for payment. So that created a lot of confusion. And what this is doing now is clearing out that whole process where Republic Services will be, or whomever is the franchise agent, as we call it, will be responsible to collect payment until they exhaust every avenue per the municipal code. Then at that point, they turn over to the city for a lien process. So so it's a lot more cleaner than the process, because there was basically two different, I guess, roads going. If you owed a payment, you have your current payment. There was two different amounts being you were informed that you still owed, and that created a lot of confusion. If you notice too, in the current municipal code, only the owner would be notified of overdue fees. When now both the occupant and the owner will be notified as well, because in the past that also created some confusion. So if you had a house to rent and your tenant was not paying the bill, you as a landlord would know about it, but they would never really know about it until the very end as well too. So now everybody's kept in the loop basically.
So this is kind of a big picture question, but I don't know when else I'd be able to bring this up, but if we're putting certain amount of our food waste down the garbage disposal, it's not impacting the methane production at the
Landfill.
right?
That is the case, but it's not recommended. Our Public Works Department, in fact, I understand they're soon to embark on a campaign to inform residents that not to put items, additional items down, or waste into your sewer, because our sewer system, particularly on the west side of the city, is not fully equipped to manage this waste because of how old it is. So there are very few cities in California that have that system set in place, but at least in Chula Vista, we're not equipped to be able to manage that waste. So I definitely wouldn't recommend it, especially if you live in the west side, because you'll have a lot of clogs and a lot of issues.
Absolutely. We still have cast iron, and also it wastes so much water. And that's what I tell people. When you're running that drain to run the food down it, it's a waste of water.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And there's still a lot of fibrous items that you really don't want to put down even if you have a really strong disposal, you really don't want to put bones and really fibrous items down there.
So I do have another question, kind of off, but it is part of this in another way. So eventually the city will get fined if we don't meet the goals. And can you elaborate as to when that starts and how much that is? And I think there's a weekly fine, I believe, or something like that.
Well, enforcement on behalf of the state does not start. Well, actually, it starts in 2022, but they have a procedure set that could take up to 18 months for the city to comply. So they have speaking of legalese, Commissioner Corrigan, there's a set procedure that they have approved by the Office of Administrative Law that requires the state to first notify of what that violation is, and it gives the jurisdiction quite a bit of time to correct. There is, depending on the type of violation, there could be upwards of $10,000 per violation, and lower than that for smaller violations. But again, there is a procedure set in place for them to for the state to notify the jurisdictions.
Now, how are they going to monitor the food scraps? I guess it's what's not going into the landfill. How do they regulate that?
They also get reports from the landfill directly into a system that the state has created, but that they actually are more reliant on the local enforcement folks from the state that will come down to visit, and they'll look at your information. If you have very few commercial accounts that have a food waste or organic waste collection, then that's their determination to say, well, you have a certain amount of businesses or commercial accounts, but very few of them are collecting, when this other group of businesses could be also adding to the collection. So those are kind of set in place. But if you're referring to maybe like investigative, we haven't heard from the state yet if they're going to do like, you know, really investigations on as to if your programs are really compliant. They're going to go a lot by the information that's currently there. That could change in the future. We don't know.
And on the businesses, are you charging, or will Republic be charging every time there's a pickup for the businesses? Because I know it's got to be increased, especially with the food scraps, and you don't want that hanging around the restaurants. So how that, I mean, how much are they expected to see an increase in their bill? I'm just
Yeah, the
curious.
service will and I've been asked to by the state to not refer it to as needed, but it really is as needed. So there is a something called a clause called the de minimis standard. So if a business, like say an office building, does not produce a lot of waste or very little organic waste, they will not be required to have that service prescribed to them. And we have to actually report back to the state for every waiver that we issue for these type of businesses. But then, you know, for the restaurants and warehouses and stuff like that do produce a lot of it, they will be required to have a certain amount and then certain frequency depending on what their current waste generation is. And that pricing is still in development as well.
Okay, so there will be an increase in their bill, obviously.
There will be an increase in their bill, yeah. But in a lot of instances, I would say that, especially for restaurants and other heavy generators, they might see a minimal impact, because then you'll see that a lot of their waste that is organic, that is going to be diverted, then they can reduce their normal quote trash costs, disposal costs, and that will see a little bit of
Balance it
savings there.
out. Okay, so this waiver, so the businesses that do not produce will need to go to Republic to get a waiver? How is that going to work?
No, the city actually, upon you know, further investigation of the particular commercial account, gives that waiver, issues that waiver.
Okay.
Yeah, and then again, we report back to the state on how many of these waivers are in our city. So that's how, if you were asking how does the state know if we're in compliance, that's another way for them to find out.
With the waivers. Okay. Interesting. Okay, any other questions from the commission? No? Okay, then let's go for, thank you, Manuel. I would like to call for a 2-minute pause to allow the public to submit any final comments on the item. And commissioners, remember to refresh your screen so the new comments appear. Does anyone?
Yasmin should be. adding the,
the timer.
yeah.
Actually, Corey is gonna
Oh,
start.
sorry, Corey.
Okay.
Thank you, Corey. Okay, I did not see any comments. Am I correct on that?
That's correct.
Correct, no comments
Okay.
were received.
Okay, let's go ahead. So does any of the commissioners have any comments or questions?
I have
Okay.
one final question, I guess. Manuel, can you kind of go over the edits that you intend to make to this as a result of our feedback before we vote on this?
The edit that I received per the feedback was on the containers for folks to store their organic waste, adding the information on for disposal purposes. That's pretty much all. The rest of them were more questions, questions that and clarifications that the commission had. Did I miss anything?
No, I think,
Hmm.
did he answer your question? Commissioner
Yeah,
Richardson?
that was certainly the one I wanted to have clarified, is that
Yep.
this container requirement has to do with what the Republic Services, whoever your franchise is going to be picking up. It's not about what you do on your own property for your own use.
Mhm.
And that's,
Okay. Okay, how about a motion to approve let me go back to, do I need to read the whole thing? Amendments to various sections of municipal code chapters 8.24 and 8.25 to update the definition of organic waste and giving the authority of the city manager to require organic waste landfill diversion and the processing of delinquent permits. There we go. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve with the
Okay,
amendment
Commissioner
suggested by Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, so I have Commissioner Baugh first, and then I have Commissioner Corrigan who seconded. Yasmin, would you mind reading off the contract, the roll call?
Commissioner Baugh,
Aye.
Commissioner Corrigan,
Aye.
Commissioner Richardson,
I guess I have to vote aye, otherwise it doesn't pass. So but aye.
and Chair Mathias.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And I see Monica Rodriguez has joined us.
Monica is our
I've been here
admin.
since the beginning.
Oh, it's the other Monica. Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I think I did that last time too. All of a sudden you just popped up, just your name popped up. Okay. So let's go ahead and, now that threw me. Oh, yes, the approval passes unanimously. So thank you so much, Manuel. So the next item on the agenda is 6.2 under action items. Oh, so that's it. We approved it. Why do I have that on here? That was 6.2, wasn't it?
There's
No,
only
it
one
was
item,
6.2.
6.1. Yeah.
Why? Okay, so my script says there's a 6.2, but there is not. Got it. Okay. So, so we're on to staff comments. And does the staff have any comments?
I do. Just wanted to bring to the commission the Summer Sustainability Series on the next workshops coming up. So we have actually one that's missing on here is the upcoming later this week on July 15th at 4 o'clock. It's protecting our waterways, starts at our storm drain. So we'll have city staff presenting on the various programs that both Public Works and Office of Sustainability have for storm drain protection and best management practices for managing waste that could affect or could contaminate our storm drains. A really informative presentation coming up for on July 15th. Then, as you can see on the screen there, we have, if you wanted to learn, we talked about quite a bit today about the organic waste law, but that's another, on August 5th, another venue there to learn about the new very impactful law coming in, SB 1383. Then on August 19th, we have actually, this one's going to be a bit of a change of scheduling at 12 p.m. with energy benchmarking and what that means to our community and to our businesses, the American community. Then you see on there another one that's really popular, Recycling 101 on wish cycling or really recycling. It's a Q&A, really interactive Q&A. And then on September 16th, we have the last of the sustainability series is the Zero Waste Plan presentation of what this commission approved. And as we move along with different community groups to present the plan and offer the plan itself for public comment. So if you could please help us promote these Summer Sustainability Series, we really thank you. And the registration, the link, it's on there and it's on our city website.
And if we
the other
miss
item-
anything, there are recordings, right?
and there's recordings of previous webinars as well.
Perfect.
And then the only other item I'd like to bring up is so for next month, besides the item that Commissioner Richardson requested to bring back, we also have to select a new chair, or select a chair and a vice chair for the upcoming year. So you could select the current chair and vice chair, but we definitely have to put that on record who is going to be coming up for the next year. And that's all I have. I don't know if other staff have anything to report.
Thank you,
Manuel,
ma'am.
I do have one question for you since you're on the line. Next in September is normally the coastal cleanup. Are you going to be doing that this year?
Yes, Coastal Cleanup will be sponsors for the section here in Chula Vista for the cleanup selection here in Chula Vista. Oh, and thank you very much for bringing the cleanup question up too, because this year we do plan to host an in-person Beautified Chula Vista event. So perhaps it might not be to the same effect as we've done in the past where there's multiple sites, but we'll definitely have something very safe in-person event.
Okay, so I'll be contacting you then?
Yes.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
believe Dennis is on the line. He wanted to update the group as well.
No, thank you, Manuel. I have no comments. Thank you.
Okay. All right. That concludes staff comments.
Okay. As for chair's comments, next month we were talking about possibly doing a virtual or in person. Now, let me give you the differences between the two. The virtual, as you can see, is what we're doing now. If we did it in person, then that means we have to make the quorum no matter where we are in town, or we have to come in, not just dressed from top up, and be a little bit more formal. So, and the other thing about that is, if we do it in person, when we switch over to an in-person, we will have to remain that way. We can't do both. We can't switch next month. We'll be Zooming, or this month we'll be in person. It can't work that way. So once we officially go into an in-person meetings, it will have to be that way, unless something comes up again where it has to be switched by the governor's orders. So we could make that decision tonight as for how we want to proceed. I kind of like this method, and it kind of makes it easier for people, but I also love the fact that we could get together and visually see each other and communicate one-on-one. So what do you guys think? Yes, Corrigan. Commissioner Corrigan?
I think Commissioner Baugh had.
Commissioner Baugh, you have.
Oh, okay,
you have a question?
yeah. So are you saying that, if we're in person, we can't have one person calling in or something like that? We can't have a mix? So, for instance, like Commissioner Legaspi, who is trying to call in from someplace remote, apparently, that would never happen.
That's my understanding. We have to be in person. We have to be there.
Okay. I think it's a nice option, but I haven't really had to use it that way, and I don't see myself using it that way in the near future. But yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see what others think.
Okay, Commissioner Corrigan?
I exactly share the sentiment of Commissioner Baugh. I have to say, consistent with what we've seen in higher education practices, and other professional meetings for that matter, there's an energy exchange, and that's really important for in-person meetings. My comment is not to be a reflection of if interpreted by a business owner, because I do think that remote work is extremely valuable, and you will be losing a portion of talented millennials and Gen Zers if exclusively in person. There, I just got off my soapbox. But that said, I do personally think that I'd like to see us move to in person, and pending vaccination status. I do not want to see us move to in person unless we are all vaccinated, or at least the overwhelming majority. And I personally am vaccinated and am looking forward to Pfizer's booster.
Okay. Richardson, do you have a comment?
I'm fine either way. So if the others want to have in person, I'm good with that.
I wish we had a few more people just to get their comments and their views to make sure that they'll be able to come in.
Can we hold on this question till we have?
You know what? I think so. I think next month we'll stay with the same, just so that we could get a few more points of views. And I think that's a good idea. Manuel, do you think that will work? If we do virtual again for next month and then bring the question up again?
Yes, that's fine.
And Chair Matthias and Commissioners,
Yes.
just a point of clarification. So the governor's order to facilitate remote meetings is only until September 30th. So this question really only applies for the August and possibly September meeting. But after the September meeting, unless there's another governor's order, all meetings will have to be in person.
So we automatically be in person. Okay,
That's
I wasn't
correct.
sure how. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
that's
Chair,
yes.
in light of the fact that Dennis has given us new information, I think we might as well move in order to practice at least have one practice session to get us used to being back in person. Although I guess this question is more toward Dennis. So Dennis, per the governor's orders, if hypothetically, let's just say, most folks are not vaccinated, we're still slated to have in-person meetings? Because I don't feel comfortable with that.
Yes, that is my understanding. And that is the direction that we've been given by the city clerk as well.
So our October automatically be no matter what.
That's correct.
Okay, so we have a couple more months.
But my second question is it a violation of HIPAA? Not if it's voluntarily given, but if we ask what the vaccination status is of attendees.
My inclination is that it is, but we could clarify that with the city attorney and the city clerk.
But if it's, my
And one of,
inclination is that it
one
only
of the
works
things,
if it's
go,
not
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think the voluntary status is the important part.
And one other thing I would also like to add too is that this direction regarding all boards and commissions is for all commissions, not just the Sustainability Commission. So the city clerk has been very helpful in terms of providing the guidance. So we'll be able to know for sure. All of these questions, I'm sure, are also coming up within the other commissions as well.
Yeah, I think we should wait until October so that we find out what the trend is. I mean, if things were trending the wrong way, we all may have a different opinion about the whole commission thing if they force us to come in person. And that would give anyone that still hasn't gotten a vaccine the opportunity to do so. Just that much safer until we're told we have to be in person. I am concerned, and this is just me guessing about some of the other people, but I think some of them are coming from work, and it's a lot easier just to stay where you are and go online than it is to have to do the traffic thing and then get there on time, 5 o'clock. But I guess it's not a choice for us after October.
Yeah. Well, I'm fine, at least for leaving August as a virtual, and then we could talk about next month and have a few more people on board, so then we could get more of an opinion to whether we change it in September and get people rolling into the what's mandated in October. So sound good? Okay. So next month will be virtual again. And the only other question I have is for the staff, and if we've been able to secure a date for our Republic Services tour.
We consulted with Republic Services for the landfill tour. They would prefer to do something either in September or October as they move forward with their preparations. So at that point, we come back to the commission with that date. But just a clarification though for the commission is that you would prefer to have a meeting and then this as an additional meeting, or make the tour a part of the meeting?
No, we were going to have the tour separate from the meeting.
Okay. So it'll be an additional notice meeting. Okay.
Correct.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions? No. Okay. How about commissioners' comments?
I have one following up on Republic Services. There was an increase in public services a little over a year ago for the recycling. Basically, they say they didn't have a market. They needed to increase the fees and so forth, and that went to the city council directly. I think all of us, or several of us on the commission, had some concerns about that. If we're talking about a new increase for Republic Services, I'd like to have that come to this commission before it goes to the city council, and I'd like to have it coupled with a revisit to the previous increase that was given for the recycling, to make sure we're not giving them just a new base every time there's a change, that their base just goes up. I think we ought to have some accountability as to whether or not they're actually doing something with their recycling market, and whether or not some of that fee increase we gave them could be backed off and applied to the organics. So I'd like to have that issue come to this commission. And the argument that it's a contract issue and we don't have anything to say about it, I think is something that we argued before, and hopefully we're not going to hear that again.
That's noted on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? Okay, so it is now 7:08, and I am adjourning this meeting on August 9th of the next regular meeting of Sustainable Commission via teleconference at Chula Vista, California. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.